whatever. I don't care. And then he's like pointing to this one hotel he lives at. He's like, I live there. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, dude, you're on the internet. And then didn't make him stop. He just kept going. And I was like, maybe he didn't realize I was doing a video. But anyway, I'm out walking, and I just wanted to talk about like the update on having cleansed my channel. And I guess I was like talking about like some of the reasons that I cleansed my channel. But the main reason that I did was anytime content doesn't resonate with you anymore, you can delete it. It's perfectly healthy. We don't need to keep every piece of content on our channel if it doesn't serve us anymore. And you know what? I don't, at this point, I thought about this too. I guess I was kind of thinking, you know, it's a little hurtful, like at the time when somebody wanted to act like they could say certain things about me, and I don't even care, or just about other people. But the whole vibe was with this particular person was I just felt like very few people could live up to their standards, but yet I was like always a kind, approachable person, and I had liked them for a long time until I started realizing that they were always having a short fuse and wanting to control a situation, like saying that we need to do things this way. And then when I pointed those things out, they were like, oh no, but you were the one that had these extreme demands. But I really wasn't. Like, it's like they couldn't to explain that to that person, but they didn't agree, because basically for them, in order to be their friend, you have to be in some sort of group of people that think, even though they claim to be so pro-freedom, you have to think correctly. And if you don't think like them, oh no, they're going to do like these little live streams about people saying, oh, how they are better and they see things better and they see it correctly. But you know what? That's so wrong. It's like they didn't even think why other people might have seen things another way. So here's the thing. I think anybody that takes such a totalitarian approach to any subject, that becomes like unbearable. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it's not right. Especially when somebody goes into their like, well, we can discuss this, but you have to make it about facts, and I'm more factual than you. And that's a big way to kind of shut down a discussion. And I've noticed, this is just what I noticed, I don't always like things that certain liberals do, but with conservatives or like libertarian minded people, one thing that they love to do is pretend like, oh, your feelings don't mean anything to me, we are just about facts. But feelings are important, and there's a reason why. Have you studied about the covert subtle narcissists? Like, they say things like that, and there are a lot of like political movements in this country and other countries that are run by narcissists. Really, you don't have to scream at someone, you don't have to call them names, but that's a form of narcissism. And I realized that, you know, I don't really care, but I realized I just can't have collaborations with people that are just so stuck on certain political views, and then for me to take a slightly different position than them. Oh golly, it got turned around. So I took a slightly different opinion than they did on something. I'm not going to cross the street, it's too late now. And I got dinged for it. But then I realized, why was I getting upset? Because basically it's like we always had to do things according to like a certain criteria with them, and they're like, oh, but I'm really flexible, and if you couldn't keep a date and you needed to do things, or you wanted to see your family, oh, you didn't like keep a schedule. But they didn't realize I had like kind of an intense schedule of my own. And then towards the end they were acting like, oh, well, I'm busier than you. It just got weird. It got weird really quick, and I realized, why am I still doing this collaboration? Because on several occasions, like, I felt like I brought good talks to their show, but they told me, well, the way you opened, like, embarrassed me, and like, oh, like no, and they never did anything embarrassing. They did a lot of embarrassing things too, but would never publicly acknowledge that. And I thought about it. I'm like, anybody that was willing to treat me like that, or just like anybody, and they had done it with some other friends, but I don't really care deeply about it. I just realized, okay, somebody that says they're somebody's friend, but they kind of like are like subtle about it, and they post something saying, oh, so and so doesn't do things correctly or see things correctly, and it's always like a political based thing. They're not a true friend, because friendship should be about loyalty to a person, not ideas. Like, if you're loyal to ideas, that's great, but you should just keep to yourself. Don't expect friendship. And I realized you could never expect friendship, because, and then they would always say to me, oh, well, that's virtue signaling. But actually what I was saying wasn't virtue signaling. I'm hurt that people are dying because a country's attacking people. And that really bothered me. But they were shutting down every discussion I had. And I realized you don't need somebody to shut down any discussion with you. Like, there are some things in the world going on right now that are very problematic. And if any country continues to like have like some sort of attack on a civilian population and a lot of people are dying, that's super problematic. And you can justify it and say this is the reason, but I don't know. I think it's kind of gone on long enough to show what they thought was wrong, but they think they're right. So I had to cleanse my channel after that, because I realized this isn't the kind of person that could never be wrong. They were always right. And I was getting tired of the political ideas too, because the only reason I started being more open to their ideas is years ago. Like, I used to be more of a like stronger Democrat, but I stopped being a Democrat because there would be like these libertarian people that would tell me, oh, this isn't a good way of thinking. And yeah, sometimes liberals can be very harsh and cruel and very obsessed with their own political point of view, but conservative people aren't too. They definitely are. And there's just something very fraught in this country, or any group of people that define their life by politics, whether it be subtle politics, overt politics, or any kind of politics. And cleanse your channel, like 120. Like, just for me, I realized I don't have to like put up with the fact that that person was okay with posting something that was hurtful, and for them to say, well, your opinions are not facts, they're just like emotions, and like saying, oh, I can only discuss facts, but I'm more factual. But there were some facts that they got wrong. Like, I remember a lot of times, like, I even like called them out. Like, one time they were saying like, oh, like cattle ranchers are being like driven out of business because they're already selling lab meat, and that's what Beyond Meat is. And I said, no, actually Beyond Meat is just like a pea protein like mock meat. It's not lab meat. Lab meat is where they take cultures from like a chicken without like having to harm the chicken or another animal, and they grow it in a lab, and it hasn't even been on the market yet. I think they may have tested it in a couple of places, but that is not even on the market. And they were saying that somehow this was like in competition with like beef, and that didn't even make any sense, because a lot of people I knew that are more omnivore, who don't even eat meat, like they didn't even like that product, and it hasn't done very well on the market, and it's more overpriced. And at the end of the day, I think the people who bought things like that more often were actually people who just didn't want to eat meat, and who maybe missed having a hamburger. But I don't know, I never ate a lot of meat growing up. I ate chicken, and I didn't really eat beef, but sometimes I would eat those things, like the Beyond Meat, just because, it was just something different to try. But it's expensive anyway, so I didn't buy it, and a lot of people don't buy it. In fact, I don't think those products are doing very well anymore, and the ones that seem to still be doing okay are like the Morningstar Farm products. But it was like, oh, if it's meat free and it's processed, it's bad. But if it had meat, even though meat can be processed, that's good. And then, I don't know, that was another thing. There was just always all this like nuance, and I had to be okay. Like, I don't know, I just always felt like every time we had a discussion, I could never truly be myself. Like, I would always felt like, oh, maybe I'm not open-minded enough and they see issues better than I do. Like, they started making me feel that way, but I don't know why, because in this collaboration, that person has never amended anything that they thought. Like, for a second, not a nanosecond, everything that they have believed, their core beliefs from a very young age, are correct. And that's that, because they stand by belief system over how they treat people. And they didn't treat me nicely. That's that in a hat. Like, and I don't care. Like, I'm not, basically, the collaboration wasn't working well, and I deleted a lot of those live streams, and I'm still on live streams on that person's channel. And to be honest with you, like, looking back, I kind of wish I had cut off the collaboration a couple years earlier, but I should have been more decisive about it, because already there were just situations where it would feel so awkward because they wanted to do this topic and they didn't want to just talk about any day discussion anymore. Like, everything would kind of change, and I tried to explain to them, you change your format a lot. But they're like, oh no, it's been the same all along. But no, like, in the beginning we could talk about any topic and it was more open-ended, but it was becoming more kind of rigid. And then the topics were just becoming all about their channel, like all about like what they talk about, which is fine, but we just had nothing in common anymore. I started thinking, this person really, like, it was fun having discussions with them, but they were just very actually judgmental on certain things. And I realized they don't really like people. Like, they might think that they like some people, but I realized they don't like a lot of people. And I couldn't really get behind that. So, and then the thing I think that just was the clincher was, I'm part Middle Eastern, and I'm proud of my Middle Eastern roots, and I'm not going to change that, being part Middle Eastern of Syrian Lebanese origin. And then they told me, well, certain like Syrian Lebanese people support Israel, and you should support what Israel's position is, and not like feel that maybe they shouldn't attack Palestine. And I was like, and then some Iranian people support Israel, and that's fine, they can, but I'm not against Israel, okay? But there are Israeli people that are against the attacks on the Palestinians, and I have a problem with that. I do have a problem with all the people that are being attacked. And I know initially, okay, yes, we know that there were Israeli people that were attacked, and that was really horrible. And nobody said that was a good thing, and we all knew that was bad. But the main narrative is being promoted until recently, when people realized a lot of people are dying in Gaza. A lot of people are dying. Like, you would have to be just kind of like callous to not realize that there are Israeli people that criticized this conservative position of their government. And I don't really care like about the politics, because honestly, like I'm saying, I think American politics is kind of not good either in a way. Like, I feel like people use politics as like this like platform to be like, I'm correct, you're wrong, and I can't change what happens in the world. But I've always been a pacifist, and I realized being a pacifist really wasn't cool. And why didn't I love being a pacifist? I love being a pacifist. Like, being a pacifist is one of the best things. Like, I stick up for myself all the time. Like, if I have a position, I always stick up for it. And I guess I wasn't sticking up enough for it in the past, but I don't like war, and I don't like, look, I know, like, my grandpa, my father, like, they served in the military, but in general, just seeing what war does, I don't like war. And it's funny too, because at the end of the day, this is the truth, a lot of the people who have these thoughts about like certain positions, they've never had a close relative that served in a war where they saw like the PTSD directly. They didn't. So they didn't know why maybe somebody who is a child of a veteran from the Vietnam War, who didn't like directly like fight in combat, but my dad worked on the airplanes for the Air Force, and a lot of people criticized that war because the U.S. was killing civilian population. A lot of civilians died, and that was a very unpopular war, and the U.S. had a very big protest against that war that the U.S. was involved with the South Vietnamese government trying to maintain control of their government. There were a lot of people that didn't like that war. And it's like people forget, and even the Korean War, like a lot of people were not like wanting the U.S. to be involved in Korea. Like there are times when people are like, this is too much. We shouldn't be involved in this war and that war. And I do think there are times when, war is necessary, but sometimes war is not necessary. But you can't argue that to people who think that they're right, and it's not even the government, like in their case, like they just think, well, this time somebody was attacked and you should see it right, and if you see it wrong. But now, all the months have gone by, more and more people are dying in Gaza. I don't know. Really? So you're okay with like 25,000 people dying, civilians? There's this new thing going on, and this is not political, by the way. This is about children in Gaza saying that many of them don't have parents anymore. Are you okay with that? I don't know. But, hey, they're collateral damage, because they happen to be born in the wrong area. And, you can't control where you're born. But please, a lot of us are not pro-war. And we're not going to be excited about anybody being attacked. It doesn't matter who it is. Well, yeah, I see what you're saying about Vietnam and Korea, but okay, and I'm not trying to take a super political position about what's going on right now in the Middle East, but you can't really justify what's happening, like in my opinion. But people are going to justify it. There's a lot of Americans who justify it. But just today, the U.S. is starting to do an aid lift into Gaza. That's interesting. When they've been backing, the government of our country has been backing Israel attacking Gaza. And a lot of Americans aren't happy about that. And a lot of Americans aren't going to vote for Joe Biden again, like very liberal people, because they don't want to see young people attacked. They don't want to see parents attacked. They don't want to see children attacked. And I'm not trying to make this political, because there's Israeli people. A lot of Israeli people were against this too. And I don't know. That was just my take about this whole thing. And it's like I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. And it bothered me. But I guess I shouldn't have interacted with that person for as long as I did, because people are willing to just make others feel like they're horrible people over their position. And okay, I guess this is what I'm getting, Casey. You're pro-Israel, right? Conservative Israel. Well, the Palestinian people are not Hamas. And that's slander that they said that they were Hamas. Like, there were Christians in Gaza. Like, there's still 1,000 Christians. Yes, there's a lot of Muslims. I get what this is about. Like, no, I'm going to be strong, hardcore here, you see. The civilian people are not Hamas. And they're not getting Hamas. Are they getting Hamas? Are they making some sort of headway by killing all these civilians? No. They've just killed a lot of people. Is this containing Hamas? Not really. But, you guys keep fighting, and there's a lot of people very invested in this, and I'm not an Israeli, and I'm not a Gaza person, but I am Middle Eastern, and I do know about the politics of the Middle East, and I do know this. I know this, there's been a lot of problems in the Middle East, and a lot of this goes back to European intervention in the Middle East. And these problems did not exist back during the Ottoman Empire when Muslims and Jewish and Christian people could all live together. So this started with all this nation state business. Like, we didn't have these problems like 100, 200 years ago. Like, they're a pretty modern thing. And I would say a lot of it started with the British, wanting to come in, the French wanting to come in, colonialism, Western colonialism, because, yeah, I do believe that there is Saudi, Wafi colonialism. I don't like that either. By the way, you could be surprised that people could have an opinion on that. But another thing about Hamas, the Israeli government used to support them in the beginning, back in the 90s, because they didn't like the PLO. And yeah, isn't that interesting? It's kind of like when the U.S. went into Afghanistan and they were helping the Taliban in the beginning. Remember, get rid of the Russians. But that's an inconvenient truth about history, and I don't really care. Here's the thing. I don't like it. We cannot justify civilians being killed, and it's not right. Some people are going to justify it at the end of the day. And yeah, I don't. And I will say it's okay to condemn the attack of a civilian population. And the people in Gaza are civilians. They're not all Hamas, and it's not working. Whatever they're doing, it's not working. But that's just my opinion on this. Obviously, what's happening is not working. Like, if people look into the actual current events, can you really get behind what's happening right now? I don't know. But, hey, we just live, and I don't boycott Starbucks, by the way. Like, some people boycott Starbucks. I still drink Starbucks. Like, I'm not one of those people. Like, I'm just telling you, I have a problem with, civilians being attacked, and that's it. And that's all. And it's pretty simple. And I don't like war, and I'm not going to change myself just to make somebody else happy. Yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts, and thanks for watching. And we're going to be strong